"You're acting like a needy little boy," she snapped, slamming the dishwasher shut. "Grow up. Be a man. Stop begging for intimacy. It's pathetic." That was it. No screaming, no plates flying, no theatrical tears or dramatic exits. Just a cold statement, sharp enough to slice through the last frayed thread I'd been clinging to. I remember the exact sound of the word pathetic, how it rang in the kitchen like a bell in an empty cathedral. We'd been married 12 years, and in all that time, I had never felt as humiliated as I did in that moment. Not when I lost my job during the merger, not when her friends made snide little jokes about my sensitive side over wine, not even when I slept on the couch for 6 weeks while she sorted out her head. This was different. This wasn't frustration or disappointment. It was contempt, pure, unfiltered contempt aimed directly at me, and all I'd done was ask if she wanted to be close tonight, not even in a demanding way. I was careful, respectful. Hell, I even joked a little. I said I missed how we used to be. I asked if she felt it too, the distance. I said I missed her, missed us. She didn't even look up from her phone when she delivered the line. "Jesus, Mark, you sound like one of those losers on Reddit. Just stop. It's embarrassing." Embarrassing. I remember looking down at my hands like I didn't know whose they were. That same skin had built our deck, fixed her car, held her through her mother's funeral. These weren't weak hands. They'd held this family together while she figured herself out over and over and over. And now, because I asked for something as basic as warmth, I was embarrassing. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just walked out of the kitchen. She muttered something behind me, probably another jab, but I didn't hear it. Or maybe I chose not to. Either way, something inside me closed like a vault door. Heavy, final, and quiet. You always think the breaking point is loud, explosive. But mine was silent, like a candle that just goes out. If you're still reading, especially if you've ever found yourself in that kind of silence, consider subscribing. Over 90% of people who listen don't, and trust me, it helps the team bring these stories to light. That night, I didn't sleep on the couch. I didn't sleep in our bed either. I went into the old guest room, still painted the same dull blue from when her brother stayed with us for 3 months, and never once said thank you, and sat on the edge of the twin mattress like I was in someone else's life. I didn't cry. I wasn't even angry. I was just still. I thought about the man I'd become. I used to be the guy with the quick wit, the loud laugh, the one who grilled for the whole neighborhood. I had friends, hobbies, I read novels and knew how to throw a perfect spiral. I used to smell like cedar and sawdust and late-night bourbon with a twist of orange. Now, I smelled like sadness, like toothpaste and silence. I don't know how long I sat there. An hour, 2. At some point, I noticed I'd taken my wedding ring off and was just rolling it between my fingers, not with any intention, not as a statement, just instinct. That was the night I realized it had. I wasn't in a marriage anymore. I was in a hostage situation, and the ransom was my dignity. So I started planning my escape, not from the house, not from the marriage, not yet, but from that version of me. The one she saw as weak, the one she mocked, the one who begged for scraps of affection and called it partnership. I was done asking, done proving, done trying. No more heart-to-hearts, no more tiptoeing, no more pep talks to myself about rough patches or emotional labor, or maybe she just needs space. I gave her space. I gave her kindness. I gave her everything. She gave me pathetic. So I stopped trying to win her over and started remembering who the hell I was before she taught me to forget. At 5:42 a.m., my alarm buzzed for the first time in years. Not for work, not because I had to, just because I wanted to be the one who decided how my day started. For once, I got up quietly, laced up a pair of sneakers that still had dust from the back of the closet, and went outside. Cold air hit my lungs like a slap, but it felt honest. I didn't run far that first morning, barely a mile before my knees barked and my breath caught. But I ran. Past the bakery that used to be our spot before she started complaining that carbs made her sluggish. Past the park where we used to walk on Sundays before brunch reservations and excuses took priority. I ran like a man shaking something off his skin, something stale, something clinging. Back home, Tanya was still asleep, or pretending to be. We'd reached that phase where you don't say good morning anymore, just make coffee near each other like polite strangers in an Airbnb. I didn't say a word. I showered, made oatmeal, added berries, didn't ask if she wanted any. I just existed separately. That was the beginning. I didn't make a big show of anything. That would have given her a target. Tanya thrived on dismissing dramatic gestures, but she didn't know how to mock silence. I let her marinate in it. The back rub stopped, not as punishment, just absence, the quiet, final kind. The way you stop watering a dead plant, not out of cruelty, but because you finally accept it's not going to bloom again. No more casual shoulder touches in the kitchen. No more reflexive kisses on the cheek before I left the house. I moved my books into the guest room. Slowly, one stack at a time. I brought in the old floor lamp from the garage, cleaned it, replaced the bulb. She didn't ask why. Maybe she thought I was bored, or nesting, or falling apart. She didn't realize I was rebuilding. I found a dusty old journal in one of the boxes, something I'd used before we were married. I started writing again, not pages of angst or romantic poetry, just notes, observations, fragments. Sometimes a sarcastic thought about how absurd things had become, like the way she still played sad indie music while doing her skincare routine, like a teenager hoping the universe would feel bad for her. I wrote that down. I laughed when I read it back. That laughter startled me. It was mine. Tanya didn't comment when I stopped complimenting her outfits, or her hair, or her new perfume, which reeked of desperation and citrus. She didn't notice that I didn't watch the shows we used to watch together, didn't wait for her to come to bed. She'd roll over, probably assuming I was scrolling like always, but I wasn't scrolling. I was stretching, reading, researching, planning. I started tracking calories, not because she used to nag me about weight, but because I wanted discipline. Not to look good for her, but to remind myself I had control over something. I scheduled a physical, first one in years, got my blood work done, took it seriously, started lifting light weights in the garage, put up a calendar, logged reps just for me, no posts, no selfies, no new year, new me garbage, just quiet progress. I even started drinking water again, real water, not wine, just to make dinner tolerable. I remember one morning, 2 or 3 weeks in, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I didn't look younger or stronger, but I looked awake. There was something in my eyes that had been gone for a long time. And the best part, she didn't notice. That used to bother me, used to gnaw at me like a rat in the walls. Not anymore. Now, it was fuel. She didn't notice because she wasn't looking. And for once, I wasn't begging to be seen. I was observing her now. Not as a wife, as a case study. How long until she realized I was still here, but no longer hers? That was the game now. Not revenge, not cruelty, just clarity. Because when you stop chasing someone, you don't just free yourself. You make them feel the weight of being unworthy of pursuit. And Tanya? She was about to discover how heavy that silence could get. Tanya always claimed she wanted peace, no emotional debriefings, no where's this going talks, no tangled mess of feelings that made her uncomfortable. And for a while, she got exactly that. The house was quiet, not cold, just still. No more conversations that ended with her rolling her eyes, no more reaching hands at night, no more awkward pauses when I asked if something was wrong. She had the emotional blank slate she'd always insisted she needed, and she loved it for about 3 weeks. At first, it was victory. I could see it in the way she stretched out on the couch alone, smiling to herself, wine in hand, watching one of those trashy dramas she used to claim she hated. She'd smirk when I walked by, like she'd finally won a long invisible war. No more needy Mark begging for connection or asking to talk about things like some kind of sad houseplant that needed watering. She stayed out later too. At first it was dinner with coworkers, then book club, which based on the outfit and heels was either hosted at a nightclub or a modeling agency. She came home smelling like cocktails and compliments that weren't mine, and I said nothing, not out of fear, but because nothing she did surprised me anymore. That silence, it rattled her. I could see it the night she came in at midnight, heels in her hand, and paused in the hallway like she expected me to bark something, accuse her, question, fight. I was in the kitchen, calmly cleaning up the plate of food I'd made myself. One plate, one fork, no candles, no theatrics, just a man eating alone comfortably. "You're up late?" she offered, fishing. "Yeah, dishes were piled up." "Oh, okay." She lingered like she had more to say, but I just kept drying the plate. She stood there waiting for something, anything to happen. It didn't. She went to bed without another word. That became the new normal. She tried poking the bear, little sarcastic jabs during breakfast. Wow, eating healthy again? Hoping to impress someone? I smiled and sipped my coffee, just enjoying not feeling like crap all the time. She blinked, caught off guard. I'd usually try to de-escalate, make a joke. Now I just told the truth and moved on. She started watching me, noticing, asking small, casual questions. Did you always like running that much? Yep. You've been writing a lot, huh? Mm-hmm. Nothing rude, nothing cruel, just disengaged, unavailable. The woman who once told me I was too intense now walked around like a cat on a hot stovetop, waiting for the man she'd silenced to speak again. She didn't like the quiet anymore. She missed the sound of me needing her, but I didn't. It clicked for her one Sunday morning. She walked into the kitchen in her old flannel robe, no makeup, hair messy, and I was already out the door, gone before she even opened her eyes. She texted me, "Where'd you go?" I responded 2 hours later, farmer's market, ran into Kevin grabbing lunch. Kevin, her old college friend, the one she never liked, the one who used to make snarky jokes about her attitude and once told her she was lucky I hadn't left. She didn't reply. When I got home, she was doing laundry she never used to do, folding towels with sharp, angry corners. Didn't know you and Kevin were close. We reconnected. She slammed a cabinet a little too hard. Cool. But it wasn't. Not for her, because she could feel it now. That I wasn't hers, not emotionally, not spiritually, maybe not even physically. And I wasn't trying to make her feel that way. That's what shook her most. I had built a wall, not brick and stone, but attention and intention, and she was outside of it, looking in. She got the distance she once begged for. Now, she was just another person watching me move on without packing a bag. She wasn't used to being irrelevant, but that's exactly what she was becoming, one unnoticed choice at a time. It was after midnight when she cracked the door open. I didn't hear her at first. The pen was moving steadily, rhythmically, a familiar scratch across the notebook I hadn't used in nearly a decade, not since before the wedding, not since I still believed we were building something. The light in the guest room was soft, filtered through the old green lampshade from my first apartment. The room smelled faintly of cedar and ink, my world, my rules. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice cautious. I didn't look up right away. I finished the sentence. Period. Then I looked up, slow and calm. "Writing." She stepped further into the room, arms crossed like she expected me to hide something. "About what?" "Thoughts," I said, then added, "Not everything needs to be shared." That got her. A tiny twitch in her brow, a spark of annoyance. For years, I had been the open book, the one who begged her to talk, who asked how she was, what she was feeling, what we could fix. Now I was the one with closed chapters. She walked around the room, glancing at the neatly arranged books on the shelf, the clean desk, the neatly folded blanket on the armchair. Her tone was flippant. "So this is your man cave now? A little midlife crisis cocoon?" I smiled faintly. "Nope, just needed space that respects me." She scoffed, arms still crossed. "That's dramatic." "It's honest." The silence stretched out between us. She wasn't used to me saying things like that, without raising my voice, without begging her to understand. "It's not personal," I said. "It's just peace. This room has it, and I need it." She didn't respond right away. She just stood there, blinking like someone who expected a punch, but got a mirror instead. Eventually she said, "So what, now you're just checked out? Writing poems and pretending that solves anything?" "No poems, just clarity." "Jesus, Mark." Her voice cracked a little, not enough to sound vulnerable, just irritated. Like I was breaking some unspoken contract where I had to stay the one craving connection. "You think I don't notice what you're doing?" she said. "You're punishing me, being cold, withholding affection like it's a strategy." I didn't even blink. "No, that's what you used to do. This is just me remembering how to be okay without being humiliated." There it was, the flash of panic behind her eyes. She tried to mask it, of course, laughed bitterly. "So now you're the victim?" "Not at all. Victims want pity. I want freedom." She didn't have a comeback for that. Tanya looked around the room again like it had betrayed her, as if the books and soft lighting and thick journal pages had somehow conspired against her. "You really think this fixes anything?" I looked back at the page. "No, but it fixes me." She stood there for a long beat, then turned around and walked out. No door slam, no comment, just retreat. But I could feel it, her confusion, her discomfort, not because I was angry or vengeful, but because I was calm. That's what unnerved her. This wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't a phase she could ride out until I got bored and came crawling back to the marriage bed like a dog waiting for scraps. No. This was me choosing sanity over proximity. For years, she thought intimacy was a favor she handed down like a treat. She thought withholding affection gave her power, but she never expected the man who once begged at her feet to rise, dust himself off, and stop asking altogether. She thought silence meant surrender. She didn't realize it could be strategy. The invitation came in the form of a group text. Mom's birthday dinner at Porterhouse, 6 p.m. sharp, dress nice. Tanya read it aloud like it was just another thing on the calendar, then glanced at me over her coffee mug. You're coming, right? I looked up from my notebook and gave the most polite, non-committal shrug imaginable. Sure. That was all she got. She expected questions. What should we bring? Who else is coming? Should we carpool? Instead, I stood, rinsed my mug, and went for a run. I arrived at the restaurant separately, Ubered, wore a navy blazer she hadn't seen before because I'd bought it without her input, paired it with a crisp white shirt, no tie, just enough stubble to look like I didn't care, but sharp enough that her sister did a double take. You look good, Mark, her sister said as I walked in. Thanks, I said, smiling, walking past Tanya like she was a decorative plant in the corner. The table was long, 12 people, 2 empty chairs at one end. Tanya slid into one. I took the other, 3 seats away, across from her father, diagonal from her. She stared at me, waiting for the correction. I didn't budge, just pulled out the chair and sat, casual, collected, already reaching for the wine menu. The server poured Pinot Noir into my glass. I swirled it once, sipped. I didn't toast Tanya's mom with an arm around her waist like I used to, didn't slide her a private joke under the table, didn't ask her if she wanted dessert to split. I was friendly to everyone. Her uncle, her niece. I even laughed at her dad's god-awful pun about turning 65. But to Tanya, not a touch, not a glance longer than necessary, just polite silence. She tried small openings. Mark, didn't you and Mom make that weird bourbon glaze for the turkey that one year? I nodded. Yeah, it came out bitter. Right. She smiled, expecting the usual follow-up, some warm recollection, a shared laugh. I didn't offer it, just let the moment hang there, like a balloon without helium. Then her sister leaned in, voice low, eyes flicking between us. Are you two okay? Tanya paused, fork hovering midair. I didn't answer. I was already back to slicing into my steak, nodding along to her brother-in-law's rambling story about his new car lease. But I watched her reaction, the way her mouth opened slightly, then closed. The tiny shake of her head as she muttered, yeah, we're fine. Lie number 1. That dinner was a stage, and Tanya had always been the director, deciding the narrative, the smiles, the roles. I used to play along, the affectionate husband, the agreeable son-in-law. But now, she was directing an empty chair. Every time I laughed with someone else, she tensed. Every time I poured water for her mom, but not for her, she noticed. When I offered to take a family photo and didn't sit beside her in the picture, her hand hovered behind me for a second, unsure whether to reach or let it drop. She let it drop. That was the moment. She didn't just feel distant. She looked like a guest at her own life, watching it move around her, unsure of the script. After dessert, I stood and patted her dad on the back. Happy birthday to the legend, I said, with a grin that felt real, not because I was faking anything, but because I finally meant it. As I turned to leave, Tanya caught up with me at the door. You came separately? She asked, trying to sound amused. Yeah, figured it'd be easier. Easier for who? I gave her a calm look. For everyone. Then I stepped outside into the cool night air, took a deep breath, and walked away. Not from her, not yet, but from the illusion that I still belonged to her. She had wanted space. Now it was starting to crowd her. She started small, a hand on my arm while passing me the salt. A laugh that lingered a second too long after I said something mildly funny. One night she sat down beside me on the couch instead of her usual corner chair, knees brushing mine, and asked, "Remember that weekend trip to Asheville?" I did. The cabin, the fireplace, the single night we couldn't keep our hands off each other. I nodded. Nice cabin. That was all I gave her. She kept waiting for the invitation, the shared memory, the warmth, but I just reached for the remote and put on a documentary about wolves. She left the room 10 minutes later. The next day, she walked in from work wearing a fitted blouse she used to wear when we were still us, a soft lavender perfume trailing behind her. She leaned on the counter, watching me slice red peppers for a stir-fry. "You always look good when you cook," she said, voice lighter. I smiled, not at her, just at the knife work. I liked the rhythm of it. Another brick, another wall. She tried jokes at first, playful remarks about my glow-up, teasing my new habits. "You're turning into one of those annoying health guys, huh? Should I be worried you'll start preaching about kale and cold plunges?" "Only if you start listening," I said, and walked out of the kitchen before she could find her footing. That was the thing. She was chasing a version of me she no longer knew how to read. I wasn't angry, wasn't sulking, wasn't spiteful. I was just gone. Not physically. I still made dinner, paid the mortgage, fixed the leaky faucet under the sink she never noticed until it damaged her hairdryer. I answered questions when asked. I was polite at her mother's house, respectful at her niece's piano recital, but nothing in my gaze said us anymore. She started showing up in the guest room more often, leaning against the doorframe like a woman trying to remember the password to a home she used to own. "Late night writing again?" "Sometimes." "About me?" "No." That answer stunned her more than if I'd said yes, because it meant she wasn't the center anymore. One night, she climbed into bed before me, lingerie on, candles lit, some kind of slow jazz humming from the Bluetooth speaker she hadn't used since our anniversary 3 years ago. I walked in, paused, and looked at the scene like a hotel room I'd mistakenly entered. She patted the sheet beside her. "Join me?" "I'm good," I said quietly. "Long day." "Mark, come on. Don't pretend like you're not." "I'm not pretending." I turned, went to the other room, and closed the door gently. No drama, no explanation, just closure. The next morning, she didn't speak, just slammed cabinets and stomped through the hallway like a teenager denied her phone. That was the morning I saw it in her eyes. Desperation. Not the loud kind, not the weepy, mascara-smudged confession you see in movies. The quiet kind, the kind that settles in when a woman realizes the man she ignored, mocked, minimized for years is now too far to reach. She had played the game of push and pull for so long that she didn't recognize a man who no longer participated. I was still there, my clothes in the closet, my boots by the door, my toothbrush next to hers, but none of it meant ownership. I was no longer hers. I was a ghost occupying her space. She tried to bring me back in all the old ways, the half-hearted flirts, the guilt trips, even kindness, the performative kind, like asking if I wanted her to grab almond milk from the store, as if milk could replace a decade of emotional starvation. Each attempt only exposed the void she created, and she could feel it now. Every time I smiled without leaning in, laughed without touching her hand, existed without seeking her validation, she wasn't being ignored. She was being excluded from a man who used to beg to be let in. She waited until I was rinsing out a coffee mug. I could feel her hovering before she spoke, bare feet on the tile, arms crossed like she was holding herself together with tension and pride. The silence between us was thick enough to carve. "Are you sleeping with someone?" she asked, her voice flat, not fiery, not emotional, just tired. I finished rinsing the mug, placed it carefully on the rack, dried my hands with a towel, then turned. No, I said. There's just me now. She blinked like she didn't understand the answer. Come on, Mark. You expect me to believe this whole transformation, this new routine, the gym, the sudden self-help renaissance, it's just for you? Yes. A beat. Her throat moved like she was trying to swallow something sharp. I don't believe you. That's not my problem. Her lips parted like she was going to yell, but nothing came out, just a breath. Her eyes darted to the window like maybe fresh air could save her from this moment. Do you even love me anymore? She asked. I didn't rush the answer. I let the question sit. She wasn't asking because she wanted the truth. She was asking because she finally realized she might not be the center of it. I begged you to see me, I said, voice calm, no malice. You told me to stop. So I did. She tried to blink away the truth, like it was smoke getting in her eyes. But there were no tears, only the memory of tears. She never gave me. You're being cruel, she said, softer now. No, Tanya, I was being kind. For years. Kind while I starved for affection. Kind while I made excuses for your moods, your sarcasm, your distance. I asked for connection. You gave me contempt. I asked for closeness. You rolled your eyes. Now you're shocked I stopped asking. She shook her head slowly like she could rewind time with just enough denial. I didn't know it was that bad. You didn't want to know. Silence again. But this time it was hers. Heavy, fragile, the kind of silence that makes people realize they were never actually listening, just waiting for the other person to shut up. She stepped closer, like proximity could undo erosion. I never thought you'd actually leave. I didn't leave, I said. You just stopped being a place I wanted to stay. Her hand reached out, barely brushing my arm. It used to mean something. A touch like that would have softened me, pulled me in, made me remember the early days. Now it felt like static. I didn't pull away. I didn't flinch. But I didn't respond either. Her voice cracked a little. We can fix this, right? I looked at her, steady, kind, but gone. You don't get to burn the bridge and then ask for a ride across it. She stared at the floor. I didn't think you were strong enough to leave me behind. That's because you never saw me as anything but background. That landed. I saw her jaw tighten. Her hands trembled, not from rage, but from the realization that she couldn't argue this into submission. There was no affair, no big reveal, no drama, just the quiet truth. She had become unnecessary, and for the first time in years, she felt what it was like to be on the outside looking in. Tanya always thought silence meant safety, that as long as I wasn't yelling or packing a suitcase, everything was fixable. But silence, when earned through neglect, isn't peace. It's a verdict. She booked the session without asking. The appointment popped up on our shared calendar next to a dentist reminder and a grocery list. Just Dr. Leah McHale Couples Counseling, a Thursday, 6:30 p.m. I accepted the invite, no comment, no resistance. I think that rattled her more than if I'd refused. She tried to act casual about it the night before, stirring pasta with too much basil like it mattered. She's supposed to be good, Tanya said, not looking at me. Has a lot of experience with long-term couples. I nodded once. Sounds professional. That's all I gave her. We drove separately. She claimed it was due to schedules. I knew it was because neither of us wanted to sit in that parking lot afterward, staring at the dashboard, pretending we were okay. The waiting room smelled like eucalyptus and guilt. Soft music played, the kind meant to calm children or shame-filled adults. Dr. McHale had kind eyes, mid-50s, warm voice, the kind of woman you imagine baking muffins and dismantling emotional walls in the same afternoon. She asked if we'd like tea. Tanya accepted. I didn't. We sat on opposite ends of the love seat, not because we were angry, because anything closer would have felt dishonest. Dr. McHale smiled gently. Tell me what brings you here. Tanya jumped in immediately, like she'd been rehearsing. We've just lost something. It's not one thing. It's a lot of little things. Miscommunication, busyness, maybe burnout. We've been together a long time, and the spark, well, it faded. I think we both want to get back to something healthier, more connected. I stared at the corner of the rug, not out of boredom. I was tracing the edge of a thread that had unraveled, just like us. Dr. McHale nodded. Mark, what about you? How do you see things? I looked up, not at Tanya, just ahead. I stopped needing her. The silence was immediate, clean, brutal. Tanya blinked once, twice, like the words hadn't computed. The therapist leaned back slowly, eyes sharpening a little. Can you say more about that? I nodded. For years, I needed her. Not just sexually, I needed her attention, her warmth, her voice in the room when things were quiet, her approval when I tried something new, her laughter, her softness. I paused, let the silence work. But after a while, needing her started to feel like being dehydrated in a desert with someone holding a full canteen and saying, "Why are you so obsessed with water?" Tanya flinched. I kept going. Calm, not cruel, just factual. So I stopped needing, and once I stopped needing her, I realized how much she'd resented being needed. I'm not here to fix a spark, I'm here to tell the truth. Tanya's lips parted, but nothing came out. Her eyes were glassy, but still dry. Dr. McHale cleared her throat. Tanya, how does that land for you? I didn't mean to make him feel that way, she whispered. I nodded. That's the problem. You didn't mean anything. Not the coldness, not the contempt, not the distance. It wasn't calculated. It was just careless. That's worse. Now the tears came. Just one or two. The kind you try to blink away before they hit your cheeks. She tried to speak again. But I'm here now. Right. Because you feel it slipping. Not because you regret what caused it. The therapist let the words settle. She didn't interrupt. She knew. I'm not angry, I said. I'm just not empty anymore. And when I stopped being empty, I realized I didn't need to be refilled by her. I built something on my own. Tanya turned toward me, desperate. So what? This is it? You're done? No, I'm finished needing someone who made a game out of scarcity. That's different. For the rest of the session, she barely spoke. The woman who used to dominate every argument now had nothing to say. The therapist asked if we wanted to schedule a follow-up. Tanya nodded quickly. Yes, please. I said, sure, if it helps her. Not us. Her, because this wasn't about rebuilding. This was the post-mortem. It was nearly 2 a.m. The house was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint creak of floorboards expanding in the night. I was in the guest room, my room now really, reading the last few pages of a novel I've been dragging out for weeks. The kind of book you don't want to end because it's the only thing that makes the silence feel intentional. She stood in the doorway like a ghost. No knock, no words at first. Just a presence I'd once yearned for, now foreign. Her voice was soft, like she thought if she whispered, it wouldn't feel like begging. Please come back to bed. I didn't look up right away, finished the paragraph, dog-eared the page, set the book down carefully. Then I looked at her. She wasn't wearing anything seductive, just an old t-shirt and pajama shorts. Hair messy, face bare, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen in years. But it wasn't real vulnerability, it was reactive, the kind that rises up only when control starts slipping. You don't get to summon what you told to go away, I said, quiet as a priest at a closed casket. She took a step into the room. Just one. I didn't mean it. That almost made me laugh. Not cruelly, not mockingly, just hollow amusement, like hearing a child swear they didn't know touching the stove would burn. I nodded once. That's the problem. You didn't mean anything? Her lip quivered, eyes wet. She swallowed like she was trying to hold back a dam with a teaspoon. You're twisting everything. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how to say what I needed. You said it clearly, I replied, over and over. You just never imagined I'd actually listen. She crossed her arms, hugging herself. It was never supposed to go this far. It went this far the moment I stopped asking and you didn't notice. She dropped her gaze to the floor. That's when I realized she wasn't crying because she missed me. She was crying because she missed what I gave her. The comfort, the audience, the effort. The man who filled her silences so she didn't have to. I thought we were trying again, she whispered. No, you were trying to rewind the tape. I was listening to the silence. That they're not the same thing. She sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, like that would make this feel normal again, as if she could recreate something by occupying space. But presence doesn't equal intimacy. It never did. I know I hurt you. Yes, I said, but not in one big moment. That would have been easier. You did it with 1,000 tiny cuts, dismissive glances, snide comments, the way you flinched when I reached for you like affection was a mosquito you had to swat away. She didn't deny it. She couldn't. I looked at her, really looked, and felt something like pity, not for her, for the version of myself that once thought if I just loved hard enough, I could build connection from apathy. She reached out to touch my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't close the distance either. You keep acting like this is over, she said, but we're still here, still married. I shook my head gently. You're holding a marriage certificate. I'm holding the bill for all the things you didn't say, for all the affection I had to earn while you rationed it out like charity. Her hand dropped. We sat there in the silence for a long time. Eventually she stood, shoulders sinking like gravity had finally caught up. She left the door open when she walked out, but I didn't follow, because by then she understood what I'd known for months. Some things don't shatter with noise, they fossilize in silence. And once that happens, no amount of pleas can resurrect the man she buried. The last morning was quiet, too quiet for her comfort. I made coffee like I always did, grind, pour, no sugar. The mug I used had a tiny chip on the rim, a crack she never noticed because it wasn't her favorite. But I liked it. It fit in my hand like it belonged there. Funny how some things stay loyal even when people don't. She sat at the kitchen table in an old sweatshirt watching me, not asking anything, not offering, just watching, like I was a puzzle she started too late. On the counter beside me was a single duffel bag, black, clean, worn just enough to show it had been places, not packed with drama, no hurried stuffing, just folded shirts, a toothbrush, my notebook, one photo, me and my dad at a baseball game, years before I learned how easy it is to be disappointed by the people you love. She didn't ask where I was going. Maybe she already knew it didn't matter. When I zipped the bag closed, her eyes tracked the sound like it was a gun cocking. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. You don't have to do this, she said, barely above a whisper. I didn't answer right away. I adjusted the strap, picked up my keys, took one final sip of coffee. Then I looked at her. You said stop begging, I said. So I stopped. She stood slowly, the chair scraping the floor like an alarm no one wanted to hear. Her arms hung at her sides like she didn't know what they were for anymore. I didn't know it would go this far, she murmured. You didn't think it would go anywhere, I replied, because you assumed I'd always stay. No matter how many times you treated love like a joke with a punchline only you laughed at. Her eyes welled, but she didn't cry, not because she didn't want to, but because tears can't flow when regret shows up late and empty-handed. I'm not trying to guilt you, she said. I thought you needed time. Space, not this. I didn't need time, I said. I needed respect. I needed to be seen without having to set myself on fire for it. I walked toward the door. She followed, not too close. Like even now, she wasn't sure how to cross the distance she'd created. At the threshold, I paused. Not for her. For me. She must have taken it as a sign. Her eyes flickered with something stupidly hopeful, like maybe this was the part where the music swells and the husband forgives and the credits roll. But I didn't turn around. I kept my eyes on the door, on the world that no longer required her permission. And I said calmly, if you ever learn how to love without mocking it, maybe someone will stay. Then I stepped out. No drama, no slammed doors, just a quiet click. Final. She didn't follow. Not because she didn't care, but because she finally understood I had already left, long before I ever packed that bag. And in the hollow silence of the house we once built together, Tanya stood alone. The woman who once sneered at my need for closeness was now learning what absence really felt like. Not loud, not punishing, just gone forever.